going on, guys? Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well, having a good Wednesday. We're back for another press conference reaction, this time ahead of tomorrow's trip to the Amex Stadium. It's Brighton and Hove Albion versus Manchester United, a big away trip for United in the Premier League. Of course, our away record is not great against teams that are in really the top half or the upper echelons of the Premier League table, so it's a big one. And Erik ten Hag has been talking to the assembled media at Carrington today ahead of tomorrow's Premier League clash, speaking on a variety of topics, talking about the Jimmy Murphy statue being unveiled today at Old Trafford at 4:30 p.m. Some really nice, poignant and fantastic words from the Manchester United manager, understanding the history, the culture, the ethos of the club, which is really, really important as well. Talking about, and it kind of segues into Alejandro Garnacho's recent new Manchester United contract, a 5-year contract that he signed, the expectations on him now that he's tied his future down to United. Also talking about a possible return to first team action for Garnacho, but also the return of the ghost, the Wraith, the Phantom, Raphael Varane. Could be back by the end of the season, or before the end of the season, actually not that far off. So that's quite interesting as well. So there's plenty to get into today in this press conference reaction stream. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe bottom right hand corner. We'll get your comments up on the screen. That's a screen as always. You know what it is? I've been doing this a lot recently. You know when you merge two words together into just one kind of, I'm a fast speaker. That's why it's it's one of those. I'm terrible at it. Let's see what people are saying. M says, big up director of football, Owen. Well, I sort of share that role now, don't I? I've got a co-director of football with someone that is known as Just Josh, different to Mike Phelan, of course. I think we did a good job yesterday in our director of football. My role evolved in the FIFA stream yesterday, and if you haven't checked it out, be sure to check it out. I know that some people had some issues with like it being out of sync or it being out of time. That's because when it starts, when you're streaming on two platforms, so for instance, when you start on Twitch, a lot of the time you start on a holding screen. So you have to start on a holding screen on YouTube as well, which means for sort of 20 minutes, you get the music, you get the elevator music. And then we try and cut that out so you don't have to sort of fast forward through all of it. But whenever you do that through YouTube, it can take a lifetime to process. And it never used to be a problem, but now it is a problem whereby it goes out of sync until it's actually processed. So if you go and watch it today, then maybe, hopefully, it'll be fixed by now. But it was fine. What we're going to do next time, I was talking to my director of football partner about this, and we were just saying it's not going to happen next time. Basically, that's it. That's not going to happen next time. Don't you worry about it. And we also turned into Statler and Waldorf from the Muppets in just heckling Flex and KG yesterday, and I really enjoyed that tremendously. Remanan says Aaron Wan-Bissaka versus Matoma round two. See, this is what I mean. Aaron Wan-Bissaka says, M says Aaron Wan-Bissaka will pocket Matoma. I tell you what, I'm on one today already. I really am. Right. Let's get into the press conference because I just need to get going, don't I? I just need to get going. As Palmeria said, I forgot to put my teeth in this afternoon. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with that. I was doing a video on my own channel, wrestling channel, Owen Wrestling News 365. I'm like 10 subscribers off from 11k, by the way. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. And the amount of like edits I had to do in that because I couldn't talk was actually alarming. Very, very alarming. But let's get into the press conference. That's why we're all here, to see the questions posed by the journalists and the response by Erik ten Hag. So the first question was, as I mentioned, the press conference usually takes place in the Jimmy Murphy Centre. The Jimmy Murphy statue is being unveiled this afternoon, 4:30, British summertime, that's going to be unveiled. So be sure to stay tuned to the social media channels for all of the coverage on that. The question was to Ten Hag, what do you know about him? What do you know about his history at the club? And how important is the club history to you? He said, quote, I think it's very good that the club gives so much honour and congratulating to the main person in the history of Manchester United, or a main person. He stands for more symbols, a symbol of youth development. He stands for resilience and determination, and they are the standards for Manchester United. He's driven by this person after Munich, a manager, many players fell away. The club was devastated and they bounced back, and this person played the main role. It's totally deserved that he gets an honour for this. Jimmy Murphy Centre, Jimmy Murphy Player of the Year or Young Player of the Year, and now his statue. It's fantastic, and indeed, it is fantastic. I mean, talk about a pivotal player and a pivotal role he had in Manchester United's history. I mean, I think Ten Hag summed it up really well there. I mean, he is a symbol for resilience and determination and player development. Even prior to the Munich disaster, his role really, when he came in as assistant manager and Sir Matt Busby, was to train the young footballers who were to then become the Busby Babes. So obviously that included the likes of Duncan Edwards, Sir Bobby Charlton, and that was even then at the time where obviously I think youth development was more integral to clubs around England at that point and in the first division, but still they would just get players from all around and put them into the first team, and it was really Jimmy Murphy's responsibility to train up those younger players and help integrate them into the first team, and that's what happened. And even that in itself would have been a huge legacy for Jimmy Murphy, but then obviously with what happened after the Munich air disaster in 1958, obviously, he temporarily, everyone knows, temporarily took over whilst the manager and while the players recovered from their injuries, steered them to the 1958 FA Cup final as well. So just a huge, again, symbol of determination, youth development, and just a key figure in United's history that can never be forgotten, ever. And the standards that were set by him, Sir Matt Busby, the Busby Babes, they will live forever, never ever forgotten. So really happy to see that statue be unveiled today, and his history and his legacy is forever set at Manchester United, even without a statue or anything like that. As I mentioned, the things that he has given to this club remain integral today, and it's part of the culture. It's the ethos of Manchester United as well. So yes, fantastic to see that his statue is getting unveiled today, and as I mentioned, there'll be coverage of that on our social media channels, so be sure to check that out as well. And I guess, as I mentioned, it kind of steers in perfectly to Alejandro Garnacho. Of course, I think he's the current holder of the Jimmy Murphy Young Player of the Year award. Obviously, he's got a new contract. The question was put to Ten Hag, how important is it that you got that player nailed down? What is his potential, and how proud of you of the progress that he has made this season? And he actually, for Ten Hag standards, did quite a lengthy response on this. He said, quote, "First of all, I think he has the prize, and it is a prize. He also shows he can make the final step, not only in talent, but also he made it. Now it's a new start, a restart, because now expectations will be higher. The demands will definitely be higher. He is on his way. He is a strong character, and that's why he's there in the moment on this level, and he did it by himself. Now more work is coming to go because the demands are higher. We expect more from him, but it's great he made it. It tells that we will give young players opportunities, but they have to deserve it. When I say give, translate to deserve. They have to deserve with their feet, show it on the pitch, and it means invest a lot, invest in training performances in the under-21s, then wait for your moment and prove again. Alejandro is that step beyond, but now the demands will be even more. He has to compete for a starting 11 position. Every time is the same. You have to cross the limits. Every time you have to go to the next level. We go with him in the challenge, but most important is the player. He has to do it. So essentially saying, look, obviously it's to be celebrated that he got this new deal. It's to be celebrated that we tied him down. It's to be celebrated that he's made the step, and the progression that Alejandro Garnacho has made has been really extraordinary. It's been so fast and so quick. As I mentioned, I remember this time, it was pretty much around this time last year, maybe just a little over a year removed. But it was around sort of late April, early May, wasn't it, the FA Youth Cup final? Yeah, because West Ham just won it the other day, didn't they, against Arsenal? And Garnacho was in that side, and he really was a standout at the time too in that game. But he still looked like he was clearly, he's a young kid. He was developing, but he was a standout there. And to see the progression that he's made just in 12 months from a slight kid scoring penalties in the Youth Cup final to where he is now, and he is by no means the finished article. He is by no means at his physical peak, let alone his footballing peak or anything like that. And he's proved to be so important. I think of the expectations that are already on him, I think, from certain United fans. I think that a sign of how great a young player is you forget their age at times. And I think that's the case of Garnacho. We often forget how young he is. How old is he? 18 at the moment? And he's a first-team player. You don't blink if Garnacho starts anymore. If the team sheet came out tomorrow, and he's not going to play tomorrow because he's not ready yet, Ten Hag spoke on that. We'll touch on that later on. But when Garnacho is on the team sheet, no one double takes and goes, "Oh, Garnacho's starting. Oh, that's a bold move by a bold man." Wink, wink. But the point being is, you don't take a second look. You go, "Well, Garnacho's starting. Good, direct, pace, energy. He's a good player." And I think that's a sign of how far he's come in such a short period of time and how good he is, let alone in 2 years' time, 3 years' time. And obviously, and I think this is why Ten Hag has been very calculated with his answer there, because it's still on him. And this is the balance that you try and strike, isn't it? That you have to strike with young players is you don't want to give them too much too soon. And nowadays that does mean, from a monetary point of view, you look at people like Dele Alli, and obviously, look, he's got a lot going on, clearly. But I think he would be an example now that managers use to young players. You don't want to be that guy that for a couple of years, has a meteoric rise playing for, a club in the Premier League, went from MK Dons to Spurs, and then was in the first team very quickly, was in the England squad, went to World Cups, European Championships, played in Champions League finals, and then now clubs are turning away from him because they're not happy with him. Whether it is Spurs, whether it is Everton, whether it's Besiktas, the drop can happen quickly, and the money will run out quickly too. It's about what do you want to achieve? What legacy do you want to set? If you're just in it for money and the money turns your head, that's great, but your legacy will be that you dropped off and you had potential and you didn't do it. There have been plenty of really talented football players, young talented football players that get to a certain point, think they've made it, and that's it. And that can happen really easily at United. So that's why he was saying, Ten Hag, I think that just because now you've got this contract, that's not it. It starts over again. The expectations suddenly get higher. The demands get higher. You're in the first team now. You're a first team squad player. You have to prove it because it gets ruthless. If you thought youth team football was ruthless, it gets even more ruthless in the first team because there are millions of footballers out there that would dream, kill to be at Manchester United, and you have to prove yourself. Don't listen to the club captain saying you don't have to prove yourself. Listen to the manager who says you have to prove yourself not in only every game, every training session, every day. The moment you get up and you're representing Manchester United, you have to prove yourself that you're worthy of being there, irrespective of how young, old, good or bad you are. That's it. So again, I think that I think he was very wise with his words, but I did the video the other day when Garnacho did sign his new contract. I think it's a real good bit of business by United. There were clubs all around Europe sniffing around him, rightfully so. I know, obviously, we get told, don't we? Oh, you're overgassing young players, or stop building up young players when they're not good enough, or this, that, and the other. For me, my opinion, I think Alejandro Garnacho can be something really, really special at United. Now, I'm not going to compare him to Ronaldo, or I'm not going to compare him to, iconic Manchester United players, because I don't think he should try to be the next Ronaldo or be the next whoever it may be. He should aim to be the first Garnacho and carve out his own legacy. And I think that's a good life lesson for everyone. But it's still upon him. And as I said, I think that he is nowhere near his peak physically or from a football perspective either. And I think he can be anything he wants to. The fact that he's doing the things he's doing at such a young age and his development has been so fast, so quick. I think with the right coaches, the right people around him, then he can become anything he wants, truly. But he still has to be managed correctly. And what a perfect manager to have in Erik ten Hag, who, as he said, not only does he come from a club in Ajax, who have such a history of youth players and youth football, but Erik ten Hag's career from a coaching perspective comes through youth teams. As he said, he spent a lot of time in youth football, whether it was at PSV, whether it was at Bayern Munich, or wherever. He's come through that youth football system, so he gets it. He understands how to get the best out of young players and how to nurture young players and the mentality required to develop young players as well. So I think he's got the right people, like coaches around him, but it's also important for Garnacho from himself to surround himself with the right people too. And that's the next step. And again, it can be a very slippery slope for a young football player nowadays. So, but I think United have done great business there, certainly. Red Baron with the super chat says, I'm concerned these fans are Sir Jim Ratcliffe out already. Are we in for another 20 years of misery? Well, look, the latest Takeover talks and developments on the Red Room this morning. Be sure to check that out with Mina and Marcel. Flex and KG spoke about the developments yesterday. Ben Jacobs wrote a really lengthy thread on social media talking about how kind of what we had said previously, which is, there's a lot of media talk, which I think is ironic that him sort of coming out saying there's a lot of media talk, or both sides haven't given up, or both sides are still confident, when it was really his initial thread that was sort of breaking the story that Sir Jim Ratcliffe was the front runner now and he was the favourite. He valued United more than Sheikh Jassim, which of course was then refuted by people close to the 9-2 Foundation. But from what I gained out of the news stories yesterday was still no one really knows. The Glazers are going to give their feedback this week to the respective bidders. It's not over, even if they suggest that Ineos is the preferred bidder. Essentially what Ben Jacobs was saying yesterday, look, if push comes to shove, Sheikh Jassim and the 9-2 Foundation have kind of suggested that they might just go, screw it, we'll go direct to the Glazers, whether that's going, forget the intermediaries, forget going to the Rain Group, we might just make contact with the Glazers and say, how much do you want? Here, we'll give it to you. So this is not over by any stretch of the imagination. So again, I think that I think that's quite interesting too. But of course, if we get any more developments on that, I'm sure we'll talk about it as well. What else are you guys saying in the chat too? David says Garnacho is special. He can become the best version of himself, and that would be great. See what else people are saying too. Red Baron says, I value United more than other billionaires. Does that mean I own United now? Stringer says, stay well clear of KG, Owen. He's going to hell. Heaven knows what KG has done. for you to say that, I don't even know. What I do know is I was after my stint as director of football yesterday. I got back in from the studio. I had a really busy afternoon, and my blood was boiling with Virgin Media. Here's hoping, this stream goes well today. And I got in, and I'm one of those people that I just find being out of the house exhausting. So when I got back in yesterday, I was like, oh, tired. I'm gonna have a snooze. And I woke up to messages from KG saying about stuff for his soundboard that I missed, and saw that Chelsea were like 3-0 down in 10 minutes, and I went, oh. Like I wasn't even interested in watching that game yesterday. Honestly, I really wasn't. Because what's funny was every Chelsea match now is when they go like 3-0 down, or when they lose, people go, I can't believe Chelsea are losing. Can't believe it. They haven't won in like 8 matches or whatever it is, And this goes back to my point too about this whole takeover stuff is, it's not, as I've said a million times, it's not about money. It's about strategy too. Because look at Todd. Look at all the money he threw at Chelsea, and he's made them worse. Look at, and that was another one. That was Kasper Schmeichel said about Sir Jim Ratcliffe, wasn't it? He goes to every game, or he's present. Well, Todd Bowley's pretty effing present at Stamford Bridge this season. If anything, we like to talk about the judge here on the channel. I'd even ban Todd from the stadium, because every time he is there, they lose. So I'd say, let's see what happens if you don't show up, Todd. Let's see what happens if you don't go to the dressing room after the game or before the game and tell everyone what a disgrace they are, and see if they actually, if they might win a game or something like that. And Chelsea, and look, I don't want to focus too much on Chelsea because I can't be bothered to talk about it. But at the same time, I still say that, could you imagine if this was United? The way we've been absolutely slammed in the past for being like 6th. Last season, they were having a field day with what was going on at United. And granted, it was chaotic and it was insane and it was embarrassing with Ollie and Ralph, and then Ralph slagging us off in every press conference, and us losing pretty much every game between now and the end of the season. And particularly like that last game against Palace, it was just the worst, wasn't it? And we finished 6th, and luckily to finish 6th because West Ham didn't win. We could have been in the Europa Conference League and what have you. But if we were doing what Chelsea did right now, it'd be wall-to-wall coverage. And maybe I miss it, because maybe I don't see it, and I don't see it as much because I'm a United fan. But it's just like they've just accepted that Chelsea are shit, and they've gone, well, growing pains, teething pains. No, not teething pains. They won the Champions League a couple of seasons ago. At least with us, we haven't won it since like 2008. Last time we were in a final was 2011. So let's not even go there. Because it's crazy to me. But what do you want me to say? That there's media bias against Manchester United? Of course. Follow-up question about Garnacho was, will he be available tomorrow? We do know he's back in training, and Ten Hag said, quote, I think we have one training session, but I think it's too soon to be available for tomorrow. I think he is short of full fitness. I think he needs some training, and then in short notice, he will be available. So no Garnacho tomorrow, of course, and that's not surprising. I mean, how long has he been out of action for? When did he get hurt? I'm just trying to recall when he got injured. He was at the Carabao Cup final, wasn't he? I believe. I remember seeing pictures of him in the flag. Can someone let me know when he got injured again? But he's been out of action for at least, a month, a couple of months, something like that. So even if he just returned to... Because when the last press conference before the game against Spurs, I think it was, or might have been the one for the weekend, I forget. But Ten Hag had said that Garnacho was back in training, but it was kind of a hybrid. It wasn't full first team training or anything like that. So I would suspect he probably has only had a couple of training sessions under his belt. So given how long he was out for, probably is a bit too soon for him. So maybe he won't be involved tomorrow, but maybe he might be on the bench for the weekend against West Ham. The point being is that, he's in for the remaining running games of the season. It doesn't look like he's going to be going away with Argentina for that Under-20 World Cup. I mean, again, I don't know how that's going to play out too. So that's an interesting one. I mean, in the last press conference, Ten Hag just was like, no, we're not letting him go. So it's not happening. So it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So as long as he doesn't get injured again, he would be available for the remaining few games of the season. I think there's, 6 games left? And I think all eyes are really focused, aren't they, on the FA Cup final, him being part of that squad for them. Because, look, when he played against Man City in January, he was excellent, got an assist for the winning goal. He was fantastic against them. So those players that were key in that game, people like Varane, and we'll touch on Varane, people like Garnacho, it's looking like, again, fingers crossed, it's looking like they could and will be available for that FA Cup final, which is really, really critical, I think. So that's real positive news. But if you're looking for Garnacho to play tomorrow, looking very unlikely as well. 12th of March, Southampton game. Yes, that's when he got injured. So yeah, it's been nearly a couple of months, something like that. So again, it would be very unlikely for him to play tomorrow. Red Baron says, is it possible for Chelsea to get relegated? Probably not. I don't think so. What are they on? They're on like 39 points, aren't they? I think. So, I mean, they always say 40 is the magical number. Not that people haven't been relegated with 40 plus points, because they have. Is it West Ham got 42 and they got relegated? So it's not impossible, but it's very, very unlikely that they would get relegated. But the fact is now that not only are they not in the top half, they're comfortably not in the top half. There has to be quite a bit of a swing for them to get in the top half. And I would just love to know, from a financial point of view, surely they have to be in massive trouble. They'd spent so much money. And I know people say amortization. That's why they gave 10-year contracts, 9-year contracts. But you spend that amount of money. You don't get in the Champions League. You don't get in Europe altogether. You don't get in the top half of the Premier League. And what's crazy is, realistically, they have to buy again in the summer because they still need a striker. I have no idea what they're going to do. I think it's fascinating. I really, really do. But this just goes to show, doesn't it? Again, when we talk about the takeover, is that it's really important who comes in and what strategy they have. To be honest, Chelsea fans, whilst I guess some of them liked Roman Abramovich or whatever, they came in, Roman Abramovich, wiped out that debt when Todd Bowley took over, took it with him. So they didn't have any debt or anything like that. So from a financial point of view, in terms of debt, they were fine. They wiped that, and there was a promise of investment, which they did get, and promise of building a new stadium, which I think there are plans to do, but it's just a shambles. It really is. So I know a few Chelsea fans. I've got a few friends that are Chelsea fans, and they're basically not talking to me anymore. They're not returning my messages because someone's got to, though. Someone's got to keep messaging them every time they lose and say, oh, by the way, Chelsea is shit. Because I think people have stopped, because people have started to feel sorry for them. And I will never do that. Never, ever, ever. No chance. I'm not going to ever feel sorry for Chelsea fans or anything like that. No, not happening. Next question. to Ten Hag was, if you look back to August, of course, Brighton was the opening game of the Premier League season. We're now in May. You're close to Champions League qualification. How satisfying is that? Ten Hag said, I never want to talk during the season of pride or satisfaction. You know my statement, satisfaction leads to laziness. We have 6 games to go and every game we want to win. Therefore, you need full focus, full energy, full preparation. And tomorrow is definitely going to be a fight. And we have to be ready for that fight and the points. And to be honest, I mean, I know I've just kind of been rambling, but these are what these press conference streams are. I mean, it might as well not be called a press conference stream. They're just a stream of my consciousness at this point. But I am concerned about the game tomorrow at the Amex, and I think justifiably so. I mean, our away record is, I think Kenny would describe it as poor. But it's poor, lad, because away from home in the Premier League, we've been terrible. I mean, the greatest example of that is when we played against Spurs last week. 2-0 up at half-time. I know Spurs did kind of the same. They came back against Liverpool. Ultimately, they lost, but I was there for the taking. And some of our away performances this season have been so pathetic and so spineless and so soft. And Brighton, they're a good team. And I know they had a little bit of a setback when they played Forest away, but then they bounced back very quickly against Wolves, won 6-0. They're a good side. We saw it at Wembley. We'd have to put in that level of performance. I thought against Brighton at Wembley, we did well. A really tough, competitive game. That's what it will be. And I think, people like Wan-Bissaka, I would think he starts. I think there's a reason he didn't start at the weekend, and that was because of, hey, we've got Brighton away and we need you to go up against Matoma again. And he was fantastic against Matoma, and I would be stunned if he doesn't start, frankly, tomorrow against him. So this is going to be a really tough game. If we, my feeling is that if we get this win, once again, mathematically, Champions League won't be done, but that is a huge step. A massive step. We'd have beaten Aston Villa, who are in and around us. We'd have beaten Brighton away, in and around us. They've kind of dropped off a little bit, haven't they? But, and again, getting that away win and knowing some of the home games we have left, it'll be just one step closer, wouldn't it? Really would be one step closer. But I'll be totally honest. I think if we get out of the Amex with a point, I'll be very happy with it. And I know that that's not the standards and that's not what we should be looking for. But before the game, if you gave me a point against Brighton away, I'd rip your arm off. And that's just because of how poor we've been away from home this season. But here's hoping we show up away from home, to be honest. Here's hoping we show up. But the follow-up question to that was to Ten Hag, if I had offered you, though, a trophy in top 4 in August, would you have taken that? And Ten Hag said, well, we want to win every game. We want to win every competition. I can't choose, but it's clear, we want to be in the Champions League. That is the competition we are now fighting for. That is the only thing in this moment to focus on. The FA Cup final is after the season. And it's true. We've got now, between now and the end of the season, it's just Premier League. It's Premier League games, and the focus of that Premier League running is let's get top 4. And then we'd have ticked off 2 things. By the time the season ends, the Premier League season ends rather, we'd say trophy, top 4. And the question is, right, if you'd have offered that to, I think, any United fan, bar none, if you'd have offered that to any fan at the beginning of the season or after the first 2 games of the season, a trophy and top 4, we'd have said, yes, please, thank you very much, and we'll move on again in the summer. Oh, and by the way, you might have a new owner, but we don't really know what that's going to be. Of course, that would be a successful season, and that's all we can focus on right now. Win these Premier League games, do it as quickly as possible, then we can start turning our attention to the FA Cup final. We can build to that, but this is one of those games, isn't it, that when we're looking at our remaining games of the season, this Brighton one does kind of stand out as one of the really more challenging ones that's left. I mean, we've got Brighton, West Ham away. I mean, it's 2 big away games, isn't it? I mean, if we can get to the end of this week, if we got out of this week with 6 points away from home, I'd be absolutely thrilled. I really would, because, again, away from home, we just haven't really shown it this season. And that would be, honestly, I think a really big step for us. Even if we got 4, I think, again, a point against Brighton and a victory at the London Stadium, which, again, won't be easy. We've seen against teams recently at the London Stadium, West Ham can turn it on, or they can be really off, like they were against Newcastle, but then they can get a point, like they did against Arsenal too. So, you don't really know what West Ham's going to show up, really. But if we could get out this week with 4 points, I'd be really, really happy with that. I mean, then you've got home games against Wolves, who they're safe, but it kind of just feels like they've just sort of stopped at this point. Lopetegui's planning for next season. Kind of same with people like Fulham. We've got Fulham at home too. Obviously, that's the last game of the season. Chelsea at home. Who even knows who'll be managing them? honestly, at that point. Bournemouth away, they're basically safe too. So after this week, you would argue that we've got a decent run of games, particularly those home games as well. So I would say this is the real critical week. Get out of this week with, let's say 4 points, the minimum. And to be honest, even if it was free, I'd take it, honestly, because I think we've got a cushion for a reason. We've got a cushion for a reason. Not that we should be relying on it or using it, but you can't overlook how bad we have been away from home this season, certainly. Let's see what some of you guys are saying. Kristen says, 3 points, nothing less. Take advantage of this game. Oh, obviously. I'm not going to go into the game being like, I don't care if we lose. Obviously, we want to win, and it is a game in hand. That's why I said if we win, I think it's a massive step. But I can't be naive and say that I'm expecting. I'll put it this way. I would be frustrated and annoyed. It was like after the Spurs game. Well, the first thing I said on my fan view is, I'm frustrated, I'm annoyed, I'm upset, and I'm happy, but I'm not surprised because we have seen that this season. So I'm really, really hoping that we put in a performance against Brighton and West Ham. I think this is, again, a really big week for us. Love says, I agree. We are more than capable of beating them and playing them off the park, but we haven't had wins against most away teams. I think, again, that's the problem, certainly. See what else people are saying. IB says Owen 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1. Is this referring to the FIFA stream yesterday? Because as director of football, I have I can't comment on formations. It's the manager that selects them. Or do you mean actually for Manchester United? Next question was, but if you do get it done early, qualifying for the Champions League, is that an advantage? And Ten Hag said, I never speak about if scenarios. Not negative, not positive. Focus on the game tomorrow. Don't dream staying the same focus as others. You have to improve every game. Good is not good enough. Put it on a t-shirt, brother. Yeah, good is not good enough. We have to do better. And we do. We do have to do better. If we get to the end of the season and qualify for the top four, which I think we will, by the way, I'm as disappointing as certain recent performances were, like say against Spurs, there was a lot of negative, almost hysterical reaction after the game, wasn't there? We're not going to qualify for the top four. And it was like, well, we probably are. We probably are. And I think it's actually a testament to how good we've been at home this season. And you look at how bad our away record has been. We qualify for the top four basically on home form alone. That's essentially what it is. Because we've beaten everyone. Everyone at home. The last team to beat us at home in the Premier League was Brighton. Since then, we haven't lost. Old Trafford has been turned back into a fortress, which is great. And roles have kind of been reversed, haven't they? Because during the pandemic, which again is a bit of an outlier, we had this great away record. Was it a Premier League record of being undefeated away from home? Once fans come back, that disappeared because pressure, and that's the problem with this United side, or this United core for a while, is that pressure, they just melt under it. But now our home record is very good, and again, that's really why we're probably going to qualify for the top four this season. But to be really successful and to really compete, you've got to be able to do it anywhere. Home, away, it doesn't matter. You've got to be able to manage pressure, and you've got to be able to manage adversity. And what I'm hoping for tomorrow too is that, look, if we do go 1-0 down, then we don't crumple. That's the key thing too. That'll be something that I'm really looking out for tomorrow. Let's say it's highly possible that Brighton could go 1-0 up early on. And if they do, it's on Manchester United not to give up and just be like, right, that's the game over. We're done. It's on United to go, okay, right, let's just take this thing out of the game. Let's manage the occasion. Let's manage the crowd. And let's just calm things down. Let's try and work our way back into the game, get a goal. And frankly, even if we're 1-0 up or 2-0 up and they get a goal back, same thing. Manage the occasion, manage the crowd, quieten them down, make sure it gets silent because they're going to be up for it. The crowd are going to be up. That's what happened at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. We did what we wanted them to do. First half, 2 goals, one was a counter-attack goal. I mean, they were perfect timing. Early on, right before half-time, crowd was booing their team. They get 1 goal back and they start to get a bit back up. That's where it's managing the game. Manage the game, settle it down. I mean, again, I sympathise for Ten Hag because he made subs in that last game the last away game rather, against Spurs, and his subs did nothing. I mean, I think he brought Fred on because he thought the midfield was getting overrun. He did not anticipate Fred was basically not going to complete a pass when he came on. But that's what we're looking at tomorrow, certainly as well. But again, we have to do better. Good is not good enough. Dave says, when is Varane back? Anyone know? I want to see Shaw be the starting centre back. Well, we are just going to get into that in just a second, but no definitive date. But the expectation is he's going to be back before the end of the season, which is really, really positive. So I think that's fantastic as well. Ed says, Owen, the fans are losing patience with Kevin Glazer. Does he still have your backing? Look, I don't really want to talk on internal matters, on the or Flay G. We're having meetings, myself and my co-director of football. We're going to have some sit-down talks. Lots of people say that it's almost a curse kind of thing, the dreaded vote of confidence in the media, because lots of times when you hear chairman or director of football or technical directors come out publicly and say, we have full confidence in our manager, they end up getting sacked. So to that, all I will say is we have full confidence in Flay G. So we'll move on. Next question was to, and actually, maybe we should get a reaction from that, So maybe I just say that again, just so people are, unclear about what I just said. This is a vote of pure confidence, full confidence in Flay G as the Manchester United manager in the FIFA career. So there you go. Next question was, after you beat Newcastle at Wembley in the Carabao Cup final, you faced them at St James's Park, and there was a big reaction. Are you expecting the same against Brighton? Of course, you beat them at Wembley on penalties in the FA Cup semi-final. Are you expecting a big reaction at the Amex? And Ten Hag said, it's a normal reaction. I think everyone involved in top sports, if you get beaten, you want to have revenge, and that is normal. They have a huge motivation to beat us, and we have to match that, and we have to do more, show more hunger than them to win this game. And willingness is the word for tomorrow. Again, willingness is the word for tomorrow. And make no mistake too, Brighton, they're fighting as well. It's not even a case of Brighton have nothing to fight for. They're still trying to get in those European spaces. Again, their form has been spotty recently, 3 wins, 2 losses. And currently they sit in 8th. If they get something tomorrow, they've got a considerable amount of games in hand over Aston Villa and Tottenham and Liverpool too, to be honest. So they'll be hoping, look, if we get a win tomorrow, we're right back in those European spots. And Champions League might be a bit far for them now, but certainly Europa League, they're fully in that shout. Absolutely. So they'll know that they've got something to fight for. It's not like going to an away side that's had a great season, but their season's kind of over. They're not going to qualify for anything. They're not going to get relegated. No, Brighton are fully contending for those European spots, particularly the Europa League spots. So it's a massive game on both ends for European football. Next question was, how much of a focus is it to Ten Hag and the United team to improve your away form? And Ten Hag said, I don't think about away or home. We have to win every game, so we have to win tomorrow as well. Which, to be honest, that's one of those things, I think, where he'll... It's one of those things where he's not being completely honest, I think, with the media, because I'm sure he's well aware, and as someone that's covered a lot of these press conferences this season, he has spoken about that away from home was shit, basically. And he's aware of that. And whilst he can say, no, I don't really think about it, away or home, I'm sure he's well aware of improving the away form. I think maybe what he's trying to suggest is that to the players, they shouldn't have to, or they shouldn't be thinking away from home we're bad, at home we're good. There should be no difference. There should be no difference in the mentality away from home, because if you're a good team, if you're Manchester City, let's say at the moment, whenever you find out what City's next game is, whether it's at the Etihad or whether it's at the Emirates or whether it's at Anfield, whether it's wherever it is, you don't, as an opposition fan, you don't think, they're going to lose this because they're playing away. When I saw they're playing Fulham at Craven Cottage, I didn't think, wow, difficult place to go. You don't know they're going to win. If it's the Etihad, they're definitely going to win. But if it's away, they're still going to win. And that's kind of the mentality, isn't it? It doesn't matter if it's home or away. We're going to win regardless. We're better than that team. We're going to show up. And I think maybe that's kind of the message he's trying to get across, that it doesn't matter away from home or at home. It's all about the win. Now, the next question was about other injury recovery timelines, being Raphael Varane and Scott McTominay. The question specifically was, how close is Raphael Varane and Scott McTominay to being available? And Ten Hag said, I think Rafa is closer than Scott McTominay in this moment, but they still are for the coming 2 games, that being Brighton and West Ham. They are not available. So no Varane or McTominay, specifically Varane. No Varane for the weekend, but he's saying he's closer than McTominay to returning. And if you saw McTominay yesterday on social media, I think he posted up either it was an Instagram post or an Instagram story, and it was like a sweaty shirt that essentially was saying that I'm back training, or I'm back either on the pitch, or I'm back to doing some kind of recovery. So that essentially is the news, that Varane, and I believe it was also reported by Samuel Lucas today of the Manchester Evening News, that it's expected that Varane is going to be back by the end of the season. Now, we don't know what game, how long, or anything like that. We don't know if it's just he's definitely going to be back for the FA Cup final. We don't know if it's he's going to be back for that last week. My hope would be, because you've got Man United versus Chelsea on the 25th at home, you've then got Man United versus Fulham on the 28th, and then you've obviously got the FA Cup a few days after that, 3rd of June. So that's 6 days away, something like that. So that would be the thing. My hope would be, and now, knowing that he's going to be back before the end of the season, now it's really about managing his recovery and timing this perfectly. You want to get him back so that he can play, maybe he does come on in one game and he does play another game, so he does actually get 90 minutes under his belt and he gets some match rhythm going, but you want him to peak for that FA Cup final. So I think that is a real positive bit of news, because when Varane went off in that first leg against Sevilla, we really didn't know. I mean, initially I thought it wasn't that bad, but then Ten Hag came out afterwards and said, actually, no, it's an injury he's been dealing with for a few weeks, and he was struggling with it. Then there were reports saying, no, he's going to be out for the remainder of the season. They're not sure, etc., etc., etc. So the fact that essentially it's, no, he should be back. We're thinking he's going to be back. He's closer to returning than McTominay. McTominay is, posting pictures of him working out or whatever. That's positive news. So now it's about managing Varane's recovery and his timeline for a return. And if we can have Varane and... well, it's difficult, isn't it? Because Luke Shaw and Victor Lindelof are playing fantastically well as a centre-back partnership at the moment. And I think Lindelof has really stepped up. I think Lindelof's getting credit that, frankly, he deserves. He's kind of been tarred with that Harry Maguire brush for such a long time. But he's a quality defender. And as I've said all season, I think this is the perfect role for him. I really do. I think the number 3 centre-back, that when Varane, who can't play every game, Lindelof can come in. Or if Martinez is out, Lindelof can come in. And in certain games, he should just start because he's playing well. But ideally, for me, the centre-back partnership that I'd want in the FA Cup final is the same centre-back partnership that beat Man City earlier on this season at Old Trafford. That's Varane, that's Luke Shaw. That worked earlier this season at Old Trafford. They managed Erling Haaland very effectively. I know, because I know people will say this, but Owen, that wasn't the Man City side that's playing now. They weren't in the most amazing form at the moment. They peak towards the end of the season, and they do. They always have in recent years. Second half of the season, they're absolutely lethal. They basically, from sort of February onwards, just win every game, and they win the Premier League. That's what they do. But when it comes to finals, it's a one-off. And frankly, this season, it is 1-1 between United and Man City. Yeah, they beat us. They pumped us at the Etihad. But we won at Old Trafford. And again, we didn't have Martinez that day. He was on the bench. We had Shaw and Varane. And we also had Garnacho that played. And he put the ball into Marcus Rashford that got the winner. So if we can have Varane back alongside Luke Shaw, if we can have Garnacho on the bench too, that's really positive. Martial was fit. Remember, he played the first 45 minutes against City Old Trafford. He was very good that day too. And we can have the majority of people available for us. That's a massive, massive improvement from where we were a couple of weeks ago when we were like, no Martinez, no Varane. Who knows what's going on with Garnacho? He's going to go away for the Under-20 World Cup. Martial's going to get injured before then too. We're in a better place. We're in a much better place with those people being back involved. So I'm really happy with that. And again, now it's just the key thing about, again, managing that between now and the end of the season and that FA Cup final too. We've got nearly 500 people watching. How many likes do we have at the moment? Do I need to go on strike? Again, there's a big writers' strike in America. Support the writers as well. They're ridiculously underpaid. We currently have 111 on the likes. I believe we can get to 200. Let's go for 200. If you haven't already, click the like button, and I won't have to go on strike. For those that aren't aware of what the strike is, maybe my strike this time will be just this. You just get the noise. That's all you get. You get the noise. You don't get the picture. Maybe instead you just get these. You know, you can get the surprise fleck. You can get, which one's this? Curious fleck. You can get wide-eyed KG, which was there earlier on, which is tremendous. You know, worried Mr. Gary. We can have that too. Maybe we just play this over and over again. That's what we need you to do, really, is click the thumbs up. That's what Eric's asking you just to do this. That's it. And do you want to know the story behind that GIF as well? Is that thumb up? The reason we have that is because that was specifically to Flex. That was specifically to him. It was in the they walked into one of the Europa League press conferences, and you know, Eric's looking around because he's very nice to all of the journalists, very polite. You saw that, you know, that signed book he gave to Simon Peach when he was stuck on the motorway, and he comes in, he waves to everyone, says hello, and Flex gave him a little thumb up, and then Erik ten Hag did this back to him. He did that. That's the Fleck. That is true story. True story. Maybe also he knows. That you know, we'll keep the distance. We can do thumbs up, no contact. We don't need that, Judge. Aya says, why should writers get paid more when they write garbage? We'd rather be watching streams like these. Much better entertainment. Well, just, you know, look, I don't want to get political or anything like this, but I myself have been a writer before, and yeah, I can personally attest that some of the pay for it is shocking, you know. But there you go. There you go. I don't want to get too political. Don't want to get too involved with unions and all that kind of stuff. Finally, last question was about going back to youth development, and the question was, how much were you aware of the expectation when you came into Manchester United to develop youth, attacking football, and deliver success as well when it comes to Manchester United? He said, quote, I know the culture of Man United. I knew before. Of course, I was long employed in youth football. I met several times Man United in big tournaments in the Netherlands. In under-15s, Man United was always there. It's the biggest tournament for under-15s, but in the past, everyone knew and talked about the Busby Babes and the generation of 92, of course, the class of 92. Man United has a big history of youth development, and in our talks last year, that was one of the points we talked about. Ajax was the same as Man United in developing young players, giving young players opportunities to work on their personality if they feel they are good persons and have a good life and can contribute to society. But we want to develop players into the first team. I think we are in that perspective. Garnacho, Kobe Mainoo is on the way. There is a pathway to the first team, but they have to deserve it. We have structures in the academy, brilliant work, under 21s and training into the first team, but talent will do it by itself. So, you know what I like there is a little shout out to Kobe Mainoo, because he didn't need to do that. He was just talking about, you know, he was just talking about academy football and mentioned Garnacho, and he didn't have to mention Kobe Mainoo, but it's very clear, that Ten Hag has a soft spot for Kobe Mainoo. I mean, there was that clip that went around, wasn't it, on... There was a clip that went around of Ten Hag talking to Kobe Mainoo after the Carabao Cup final victory, wasn't it? And obviously we don't know what he said, but you kind of got the impression that it was something along the lines of, this is what you want. These moments is what you strive for and all this kind of stuff. He was talking to Kobe Mainoo, he's nodding his head and all that kind of stuff. So clearly he sees big things in him. And that was one of the stories this year, wasn't it? That Ten Hag had kind of overhauled the process. He wanted to have complete overreach when it came to the under-21s teams and the academies, because that's what he was used to at Ajax, and that's what he felt worked with Ajax, and he developed fantastic players at Ajax. Of course, they have, you know, incredible development of players. They have an incredible academy there, and it really is their philosophy, their lifeblood is the players that they do develop. And you know, and with Ten Hag overseeing that and again putting more structures in place and more pathways into the first team, I think that's fantastic. Of course, that's brilliant for United. So, and as he said, he came up through youth football in terms of coaching, whether it was at PSV or Bayern or wherever. So he's more than familiar of the struggle and how difficult it is and how you need to show players that if you work hard enough, you can get into that first team squad. So I think that's fantastic too. And Kobbie Mainoo could be absolutely fantastic for us in the future too. So excellent stuff. Love says Kobbie will get games next season. Looks promising for him. He has to be patient, and he has. Credit to him. And yeah, I think it's absolutely fantastic. But there you go, guys. That's a press conference reaction for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. As I mentioned, we're close to 150. Let me do the maths. 14 away from 150 likes. So if you haven't already, click the like button. Be sure to subscribe as well, bottom right hand corner. What's on tap for today? As I mentioned, if you haven't gone back and watched it, go and watch Red Room this morning with Marcel and Mina discussing the latest Takeover developments and drama. In addition to that, we've got a preview. Flex is going to break down the game for Brighton versus Manchester United tomorrow at the Amex. Big game. It really, big game. Yeah, check that out later on this evening. We'll be dropping at 6 o'clock. If you missed all of the content that went up yesterday, it was a busy day. There was a morning view with myself and Flex talking about Sir Jim Ratcliffe's plan for possibly Controlled and the Glazers and what have you. There was also FIFA, which is like 2 hours long. So if you what's great with those FIFA streams is it's one of those ones, and I'm saying this as someone that, I think most people that start off doing this just start off as fans or consumers anyway. And I know like sometimes you just want noise on in the background, that you don't want to, you don't even have to look. It's great noise. It's great noise. So if you haven't already, check out FIFA, or you can check out the Flex and KG show too. They were in the studio yesterday chatting up, doing only what Flex and KG can do. Tomorrow, full match day experience. So as always, you're going to have your road trip on the way to the Amex. You're going to have obviously the match view inside UBHQ. Full-time view is back indeed, so that's going to be tomorrow as well, plus all of the fan views, plus everything, all of the above. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. We recently hit 139,000 subscribers here at United View, so the road to 150 is rapidly approaching. And of course too, we're building to the FA Cup final and what is going to be a really big summer, a really exciting summer. I can't say, yeah, between you and I, I'm going to pull this up a bit higher, I nearly broke it. Between you and I, big things in the summer, exciting things coming in the summer. Can't say what they are, but between you and I, no one's watching, I don't think. Exciting stuff coming in the summer. So maybe now's the time to subscribe. And if you haven't joined the UV Members Club, you can do so. Latest episode of UV Raw is my favourite ever episode, with Marcel and his watermelon on the train giving out to strangers. That's a real thing. I wish, actually, I would. You know what I'll do? And this is me fully off the rails at this point. I've got to find it. I've got a screen grab of Marcel. I've just seen it again. I've got a screen grab of Marcel when he's got some feedback about this watermelon that he gave out. No, he gave out some watermelon to a stranger, right? And why is this not working? He gave out some watermelon to a stranger, and he was so happy with the response that he got that he was overjoyed, and it all stems from him basically wanting so badly for Josh to have this bit of watermelon, and he goes, mate, you've got to try it, and Josh is like, no, I don't want watermelon. I don't really like it. And he's going, no, trust me, you've got to have the watermelon. You've got to have it. And Josh is like, no, I don't really like it, and whatever. And then this picture that I'm going to put on the screen right now is when Josh actually says, fine, whatever, fine, I'll have the watermelon. And Marcel is overjoyed by the watermelon. This. Look. He's thrilled. Look at that. Look at that. that is a man who is so happy. I mean, so happy that he got the watermelon. Oh my goodness me! Look at it. He was thrilled. Dude, if this image alone isn't enough for you to go and watch UV Raw right now, and again, it's exclusive only to members, you've got to go and watch it. The last, but it's his episode. It's a love letter to Marcel. It is so great. The watermelon's just part of it. There's another part of when he's staying in a hotel room, and to give it a nice smell, he gets car freshener. It's the biggest bottle and the biggest spray, like an aerosol can spray of car freshener. And it's honestly, you do it, the smoke comes out. It looks like Edge is about to come out in WWE. I thought someone should put over it, "You Think You Know Me," and then spray it. It's incredible. Oh, it's madness. You know, when David De Gea doesn't get a new contract. Oh my God. When Dubravka says, "You know what, I miss Man United." Oh. Oh, Marcel, this guy he's the best. He absolutely is the best. So there you go. That's like a little infomercial for you there. If you haven't already, and you're not already a member of the UV Members Club, sign up. You get to watch UV Raw. So there you go, guys. Anyway, look, I'm out of here. Have a great Wednesday afternoon, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Peace.